attack, the scale of today's attack was much smaller than yesterday's, when Russia used more than 200 missiles and drones to target cities across Ukraine. Kyiv had to use all its resources in order to repel this attack. And President Zelensky has announced that they had to use F-16 fighter jets that just arrived in Ukraine in order to intercept some of those Russian missiles. And he also announced about newly developed ballistic missiles. First, Ukrainian-made ballistic missiles. And he said that they successfully tested this weapon. And this is a proof that Ukraine is trying to design its own military technology. But of course, they're still heavily dependent on Western military weapons.
In sport, the FIFA Women's Under-20 World Cup will get underway in a few days, and Fiji's young footballers are preparing for their opening match. The young Coolers are the only women's side from Fiji to have featured at a FIFA World Cup in any grade. It's a tough ask for them as they face Brazil, Canada and France in their group. Head coach Angeline Chua says they are realistic and know how difficult it will be. Fiji's first match against Brazil kicks off 11 in the morning on Sunday, Fiji time. Meanwhile, Football Ferns striker Grace Jale, who has Fijian heritage, is returning to the Phoenix after a 2-year absence, where she's played for Canberra United and Perth Glory. Jale has signed with the Phoenix for the upcoming A-League season. The Oceania Paralympic Committee says the Pacific team will be out to prove their worth at the Paris 2024 Paralympic Games. Paul Bird, president of the Oceania Paralympic Committee, says they are proud and excited, urging support from the Pacific and global communities. A total of 13 athletes from Fiji, Tonga, Papua New Guinea, Vanuatu, Solomon Islands and Kiribati are now in Paris. That's your latest RNZ Pacific News and Sport. For more, go to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. Malota Lava Mai, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susanna Suisuki. Coming up.
If we save the Pacific, we save the world.
The UN head issues climate SOS at Pacific Leaders meeting in Tonga. Also, rebuild begins after deadly flooding in Papua New Guinea. And later on,
very concerning for me and a lot of my people. And over there, here it's bang, 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 boom, boom, boom.
Guam land rights battle continues ahead of proposed US long-range missile testing. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has issued an SOS to save our seas. Mr. Guterres spoke at the Pacific Islands Forum in Tonga this morning. Lydia Lewis was at the press conference. Malolele, Lydia, what were the key points he made?
He made some strong one-liners, but nothing necessarily that we haven't heard before. Antonio Guterres has been a strong advocate for climate justice, and in his press conference earlier today, he said that fossil fuels are cooking the planet, the ocean is overflowing, and months after months, sea temperatures shatter records. So again, some really strong comments ahead of COP29 in November. He's also called for the global community to advance a fast and fair phase out of fossil fuels. And he fell short, though, of a couple of questions from media. One journalist asked him whether or not Australia needs to do more. He kind of talked around the question a bit and said that everybody needs to reduce fossil fuels.
And Taiwan has been steadily losing allies, with Nauru being the latest in the Pacific to drop ties in January of this year. You spoke with Kiribasa's head of delegation. Why the shift?
The minister heading the Kiribati delegation says China is just like any other development partner to Kiribati. He was straight up and he said our shift to China is to follow the world. He also told me that the government's decision to re-establish bilateral relations with China has so far proved beneficial.
And I understand New Caledonia's ongoing political troubles are at the fore. What's the latest, Lydia?
Well, the Troika has met today, but it's yet to finalise its next steps. The Troika is made up of the past, present and future forum chairs, and they were supposed to travel to Nouméa ahead of this meeting to gather information from all sides to present to the rest of the Pacific leaders. That was postponed after allegations that France was trying to hijack the mission, which was originally requested by New Caledonia President Louis Marpol. So a lot to unpick here in Tonga. New Zealand's Foreign Minister Winston Peters has also weighed in. He's met with President Marcel. This was what he had to say at his final press conference before Prime Minister Christopher Luxon arrives.
Before we all make up our mind individually, before we have a decent, sound, logical discussion, we all make up our mind collectively with one thing in mind. Not our country's ego, not our personal egos, but the long-term solution for New Caledonia.
Meanwhile, the French ambassador to the Pacific has been meeting with many officials late into the night here in Tonga to make her case. And she maintains that France has always been open to dialogue.
French Polynesia's president says France made 3 mistakes which led to the perfect storm in New Caledonia. Lydia Lewis asked the Muay Thai brother what he makes of the French state's handling of the political crisis so far.
Well, of course, I stand with the people of New Caledonia and from every side of life. We've been witnessing events from French Polynesia, and we are already seeing people coming to our country from New Caledonia, fleeing the events. Some Polynesians that were established there for many generations who have decided to come back home. Some people from New Caledonia that are not Polynesians that also have decided to move away from those events.
What do you make of the French state's handling of the political crisis so far?
Well, I think it has unfortunately proven inefficient. Right after the second referendum, I was then a member of the French Parliament, and many of us tried to warn the French government not to go ahead with the third referendum, knowing that the Kanak people were into mourning, and mourning in Kanaki has a very special meaning. It takes weeks, and they were supposed to be campaigning during that mourning time, and we knew that it wasn't going to take place and that they would not participate in the third referendum. So the first major, I think, error from the French government was to maintain that for the referendum. And then following up, there was the nomination of Sonia Bakis, who is, of course, of the
wanting segregation.
Exactly, wanting segregation and against the FLNKS, nominated as minister in the French government. That was the second mistake. And then the third mistake was, of course, the pushing for a change of the eligibility criteria for the voting in New Caledonia. And that was the perfect storm coming. But we warned everyone a long time ago.
And France maintains that referendum, that third and final referendum, it was the right time and that it stands.
Well, of course, their perspective on things, but how can you consider a referendum where 51% of the population didn't participate relevant? Especially a self-determination referendum. It was not something mundane. And also, the former Prime Minister basically at the time ensured the FLNKS that if needed, the postponing of that referendum was something that was feasible. So that's why everyone on the Kanak side was so surprised of that France was so eager to maintain the third referendum, even though they were announcing that they would not participate.
And is there any expectation from France on your representation at the forum? Are there perceptions that the French territories are an extension of Paris at the forum?
Well, I think that France has sent Mr. Olivier Poivre-Larrois here in order to try and meet with the foreign leaders, especially the Polynesian Leaders Group, to prepare the UNOC meeting in Nice in 2025. Besides that, they will probably have bilateral meetings with some of the leaders to try and address the New Caledonia issue. But I was in Japan a few weeks ago for the Pound 10, and there we were discussing the situation in New Caledonia, and decision by the foreign to send a mission, the Troika mission in New Caledonia. I had to discuss with my friend Wima Poo about why it was postponed, because I heard that it was upon request of the NJS. So I had to make that clear, because I had not at the time why the decision was made to postpone that mission, but I still think that mission is relevant, because it would give, I would say, everyone external, non-biased perspective on what's happening in New Caledonia.
Because it took so long to get back on the UN list, do you hope, or can you envision, French Polynesia's independence or self-determination in your lifetime? Do you hope that that's your legacy?
Well, I mean, it's not something that I don't know, maybe I'll see it in my lifetime, but I'd rather, have I would say, successful independence from my grandchildren than seeing, something that has been hasted, and it takes time, and we have to prepare ourselves, because the state of our economy and the state of our society as we speak today has been totally, I would say, overturned, because when the nuclear tests arrived in French Polynesia, the economy was turned upside down. Our society was also totally changed.